The RAV1 UV, if it's anything, is that there's two things. One is that you got to have a high quality effluent because that light doesn't penetrate particles. And you've got a very high quality effluent, very low suspended solids. So you've got an ideal effluent to do UV disinfection. You don't have to try to zap the chunks that are coming out there, which is always a challenge. The other is it's a high power demand. You're essentially trading off electricity costs for chemical costs. Well, having a municipal utility, you can buy power cheaply. And so it really favors the UV disinfection. So we think from an operational perspective and a cost perspective that you should look at ultraviolet disinfection. Let's change your mind down the road and say we want to look at more emission. That will go after the final clarifiers before we discharge to the stream. Now, Jack has indicated that a concern regarding the effluent pipe that leads to the creek. If it's part of the UV, that should be replaced. We also should include provisions so that if we had to, if we had a flood condition, we can isolate it and pump from the treatment plant around. Just pump it out of the structure, throw it into the flooded creek. Right now, if the creek is up, there's no way to get the water out of the treatment plant. We're not suggesting that the flooding occurs often enough that you need permanent pumping, but at least a provision to do that. Also, if you're going to do that, you can monitor. One of the other questions that came up is, can we meter the effluent, calculate the flow based on flows going out of the treatment plant? And you can do that. It's not real costly to do that. You can use that in lieu of or in supplement to the influent. Generally, we kind of like the influent because it gives you a better handle of what's coming into the treatment plant in the short term. Because what happens when you measure on the vacuum, it's sort of been hanging around in tanks, and so it's kind of an attenuated version. So instead of having the sharp peaks that come into the plant, you'll see them come in like this, and you'll see them kind of go out a little bit more porous. There's a little bit of attenuated. But if you wanted to, as a part of the UV disinfection, you could put flow metering. Flow metering on the effluent is really good for controlling the UV disinfection. But if you wanted to, if we do the UV disinfection before we do the primary clarifiers, that would give us an opportunity to effluent monitor, pull that plume out for a few years, and help even improve that as the interim. So that we can get rid of that plume, just tear that, open that channel up. From a timing perspective, you're probably talking a couple $225,000 for the UV disinfection associated piping. That will be a permanent requirement, but we think it's probably 5 to 7 years before you're going to have to do it, just depending on the bit around the issue of the permit and how long they get. So we're kind of looking at that as somewhere 5 to 7 years. You could go do it today, but there's really no requirement for that. So that pushes it out where it's not too many years ahead of time that you think you're going to have to do the primary clarifier. So when we looked at the treatment plant, we came up with a list, and if you kind of go back, turn it back. Last page. There are some, at a minimum, I think you need to replace the sewer, between the inlet manhole and the removable. You need to, I think we should put the isolation valves on the split bottoms, because that's something we can use thoroughly whenever they're in there. And at least do some of the short-term structural repairs on the second stage treatment filter. Not a lot of money, and so Scott had asked that we try to be conscious of the debt service, and so we tried to say what we identify what we thought was important in the next couple of years, what we could put on. Then in the second stage of the improvements, we identified the balance of the work as a treatment filter, as well as the UV disinfection. Now understand the timing of the UV disinfection is a little bit up in the air. We won't control that. It could be as early as 5 years. It could be, I don't think it'll be much longer than 7 years. So that will occur before the debt service is paid off on the 1999 improvements. We then work at the large improvement of 10 years out, so sort of post the debt service. We think that we can stretch it out that far. Now those second and third stage of the improvements are only 3 years apart. And sometimes when you get them that close together, that close to the end of an existing bond issue, you can either work with the DNR financing, try to wrap it together as one project, and wrap the debt service around the existing, so you don't have this big like 1 or 2 year hump. You sort of kind of slide in from one to the other. That's down the road a little ways, but these all except the first projects, we thought you had a chance of maybe pushing those back to the, you could wrap the financing around the existing debt service and not have to do a separate financing on top of the existing debt service. When you get out to the last couple, 3 years of the bond issue, it's a lot easier to sort of make them kind of fit together. And so that's kind of our overview of the treatment plant. I think it's a good, solid plant, but you're going to have to do some short-term things, and there's going to be some investment down the road in disinfection and primary cleanup. This is a draft report. There's a couple of things we need to see and finish up. I don't think it's going to fundamentally change the recommendations, but we want to make sure we've got all our bases caught and taken care of before we finish up. But we thought being here tonight, this was an opportunity to present it to the council. It may not be necessary to present it again, because I don't think it's really fundamentally going to change. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
What about sample? When you talk about sample?
Yeah, we'll put the sample in. Yeah, we consider sample. We'll have some language in there about the sample. That would be a short term.
Something that was raised as a concern from Jack and on that sample, and especially the effluent sample, not being a physical setup, not working very well about a plant to suck out of that outflow. So how would you come up with try to address that?
That is not the easiest thing to address, and so that's one of the things we're still trying to. We've got a couple of ideas about how to do the sampling on the outflows.
That's what we're paying you.
Yes, that's what we're working on. We're about a week short of what I needed to get everything resolved, but we thought we wanted to see anything. So.
My question on is this money you're talking right now is today's dollar. Now you're looking at your improvements from 2015 to 2015 and 2010. How much of an increase will that be? Are we able to get the same amount of stuff done for
That's right. If you look over the last 10 years, the costs in the wastewater business, they've averaged between 3 and 4.5% a year.
So you're looking at 30.
So you're probably looking at something in 10 years out, 40% higher than The problem is if I start looking at, if I start looking at 10 year out, bringing back today's dollars, it's just speculation as to what it's going to be. So we can estimate what that would be. If you'd like to see it in today's dollars and time value money, we can sure do that. Glad to do that. But we normally look at it for, these are looked at for 2011 construction. They're going to index it. If you want us to index them out, you can have it. When you look out 10 years, that crystal ball is pretty high.
All the stuff we would do would be GMR approved.
Yeah, the only thing you're not required to do, you would not be required to get a construction permit for replacing the pipe because it's putting it back exactly as it is, you're not changing it. You would not require a DNR permit for repairs to equipment filters, the structural repairs during the process. In theory, you need a permit for the valves, the isolation valves. And you don't really need a permit for the samplers because that's not part of the treatment process. Everything beyond that, so anything that deals with the treatment process, we would need a DNR permit for. Anything that sort of deals with the ancillary, doesn't get process or I'm replacing something exactly what I've got. So if you get 15 feet of pipe out and put the same 15 feet back, I don't make it bigger, I don't need anything else. I don't need a permit for that. If down not for the short term, but for the longer, you may want to use their low interest loan financing. At that point, you need to go back through the process and get a permit. One thing I will note, it's not really part of the study, but the DNR is introducing a new concept. And if the city anticipates its future permit will be bigger than what it is today, and that may not be the case. You may be right, where you can live without doing that. They've introduced this concept called anti-degradation.